Alright, so Doctor Who Flux Chapter 2 Shit of the Sontarans, or War of the Sontarans as it's officially called. So, yeah, this episode I will say it's better than episode 1. It is a lot better than episode 1, and this one feels a lot more like a Doctor Who episode rather than just a random collection of just scenes shoved together. But this episode, I will say, quite out frankly, this episode's biggest problem is that it's part of Doctor Who Flux. Like, if this was just a Sontaran story on its own, then it probably would have worked a lot better. But as is, because it's forced into Doctor Who Flux, or shoved in there, and this episode is also written by Chris Chibnall along with every other episode this series is at least, either solely written or co-written by him. It just doesn't really have that much. I mean, let me explain. Let me go into this. So, the Sontaran story itself feels like a kind of very generic Sontaran story, and really throughout it we never really get to find out what the Sontarans actually want other than generic take over Earth. But the thing is, we're never given a reason why, and Chris Chibnall doesn't really give a reason why. I mean, the reason the Sontarans basically, kind of do anything is to basically advance their war against the Rootans. And the Rootans are just completely forgot about in this and never even mentioned. And again, Chris Chibnall, makes the Doctor seem like the ultimate enemy of the Sontarans, but the Doctor isn't. The Doctor is a known enemy of the Sontarans and is definitely, up there on the list. But, the Sontarans' greatest enemy is the Rootans, so yeah. Though, speaking of the look of the Sontarans, their actual costumes themselves, the bodysuits, they look really good. They do look really good. I do really like the look of them, looking more like classic era. So sometimes the only thing about them is that apart from Dan Starkey, who returns in this, the Sontarans do seem a bit too tall. They've got two Doctors syndrome, I guess. They've got Stike syndrome. And also the makeup on the face, the actual heads, the prosthetics and that isn't quite as good as it previously was. It seems it's far less expressive and, than it was previously from 2008 all the way up until, um, well, the last time it was used, I think, was with Strax and that. So, yeah, it's not. It seems like Dan Scotty and the other actor, and I forget his name, it feels like they're desperately trying to get basically any movement out of the face that they can, but the face since it seems like it's so thick and rubbery that it just isn't accommodating for it. Also, I will mention, and this is a problem throughout the Chibnall era, the sound mixing is really bad to the point where a lot of the time I can't hear the dialogue over the soundtrack. I literally cannot hear what the dialogue is. So in some scenes where there's some important dialogue being happening, I can barely hear it because the soundtrack is just played far too loudly, and the actual dialogue which is mixed in with that, you actually can't properly hear it. So ironically, the only way to probably hear it is to put a filter on through it to get rid of a lot of the bass in it, to actually to be able to hear the dialogue, which, yeah, not a good thing. The Sontaran, kind of battle with the soldiers, with the 1800 soldiers. To be honest, I wish that was just a story on its own, or if it was going to be set in modern time, then just have that be a story on its own, because trying to shove it into Doctor Who Flux, it feels like Doctor that this was a story Chris Chibnall had already written and it was just retroactively put into Doctor Who Flux. Because to be honest, it hasn't really got anything to do with the Flux, and it doesn't progress the story at all. It just feels like, this is just more of a filler episode, and it doesn't have a lot to do. It does have its enjoyable moments, but I think that's more so because of the really good acting in this. And I was also disappointed that Anxiety wasn't in it that much either. He only has a couple of scenes, and that's it. And even the Sontaran commander, he doesn't have that many scenes in it. So yeah, the Sontarans, I feel like they're a bit wasted in this, unfortunately. And yeah, we never get to know what their true plan in this actually is. And if we do, I couldn't hear it over the bloody soundtrack being blared out throughout this. And for some unknown reason, at the start of the episode, and that for somehow the TARDIS, brings the Doctor and Co. to the 1800s. Just like, okay, somehow that just happened. Fine, whatever. And the Doctor can't get into the TARDIS because the TARDIS doors have disappeared because plot convenience. That's why. And also, Yaz and Dan are taken out of time. Dan is returned home for some reason, yet Yaz is not. Yaz is taken to the planet Time, which, oh god, sounds really, really stupid. Because it is. Yeah, why does Dan get taken home as well? Why does Dan get taken home but Yaz doesn't? I really don't know why. Nothing is really ever explained in this. Apart from exposition dumping. Because Chris Chibnall, whenever he has ever, shoves in a historical figure, and the Doctor, Joey Wicker's Doctor, does whatever she does when she sees a historical figure, read out the first paragraph or two from the Wikipedia page. In some cases, line for line. So, yay that. Again, a lot of the time in these episodes, I just kind of get just bored and honestly distracted by other things. I mean, it's weird because I've been rewatching Torchwood recently this week, and there's episodes in that which are written by Chris Chibnall, but they, were at least not boring. Even Torchwood Day 1 with the fucking sex gas. I mean, at least it's so ludicrous and that it's entertaining in that regard. This, though, just kind of falls flat in places because it feels like it's desperately trying to basically be previous Sontarans stories. I mean, a lot of the time, the modern day stuff felt like it was trying to be the Sontaran stratagem, except in modern day. And there's even a reference to Lynx. Yeah, one of the Sontarans basically, calls out Lynx, and supposedly that's why they hate Earth. Because Lynx claimed the planet, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, how would the Sontarans know about it? Like, Lynx was cut off, from his command. That was the whole point of, I don't know. Has Chris Chibnall even watched these stories or recently, or has he just gone on Wikipedia to refresh himself? I don't know. Dogman's back and even referred to as Scooby-Doo in this. He's back. How did he manage to evade the Sontarans? Don't know. He's just kind of there, for plot convenience. Remember that. He's just there. And Dan somehow sneaks into an almost completely unguarded Sontaran ship. Why was it not guarded? Like, seriously, how was he able to sneak through with nothing but a fucking wok? How? And also, he mentions in this episode that it's been a few days since he's been back. No, from what we can gather, all this has happened to him, like, within the past hour or so. Maybe a bit longer, but days? It has not been days for him, leaving, basically being kidnapped from Earth, and for him returning back to Earth. It has not been days. You know, from everything we have seen, it has not been days. So that doesn't really make sense, unless they're trying to suggest he was kept in that cage for days, but it clearly is not the case because the Flux was approaching. So yeah, that doesn't really make sense. And for some reason, we're randomly introduced to Dan's parents for like 5 seconds to just kind of establish that they exist. Okay. And also, they discover the Sontarans' weakness because of one of their friends being drunk and somehow hitting them on the pubic vent. Okay. This is all just. It all just kind of happens because the plot needs it to happen because there's no time to establish anything. And that's the problem with this. It's trying to basically shove a bunch of things at the wall, but it doesn't really have time to expand on anything. It's just like, the Sontarans are here because they need to be here, because whatever. And then the last, 10, 10 or so minutes, we got our main overarching villains, who I'm going to call them Mr. Glitter and his sister, because I can't be asked to remember their names. I think some people were theorizing that maybe it was the Master, but clearly I don't think that's the case. Now, don't get me wrong. I reckon the Master, if the Master doesn't appear in this series, then the Master will definitely appear in one of the specials following it. Because, I can, like, Sasha Garo and Co, I can see Chris Gilmore wanting to get at least one more appearance before the end, so in terms of that, yes. But honestly, we still don't know their plan, and it's all a teaser, and it's still doing the teaser of, oh, all in good time, Doctor. Just like, we don't know what they want, we don't know their motivation. Just like, why should we care? And of course, in the next time trailer, we get, obviously next week, we're going to be getting the Cybermen. And how is that they are going to be, like, honestly, the Sontarans just feel like a monster of the week kind of thing. Like, despite being called War of the Sontarans, like, if you swapped out the Sontarans with the Cybermen, or basically any other monster, the story would be no different. The story would be no different. They're just basically the interchangeable monster of the week kind of thing. Which is a shame, because this is the first proper Sontaran story in over a decade. And at the end of the day, this episode is just very, like, I wouldn't even call it bad. I'd just call it painfully mediocre, which is most of the Chibnall era is just like painfully mediocre. It's just really dull for the most part. It doesn't really have any of its own ideas, so it's kind of just shoving a bunch of ideas and that together, because I mean, it is, what it is. And it's just a shame, because the thing is, I could see more of a potential in this episode, because at least this episode kind of was a story and wasn't just, jumping between random scenes of random characters vaguely trying to establish an overarching plot. At least here it had somewhat of a story, although it didn't really go anywhere. It was kind of over before it even had a chance to begin. So, yeah. There we go. The Sontarans just like, they just are able to do whatever the plot basically demands that happens of them. They're just kind of shoved in there because recognizable monster, shove them in there. And yeah, that's basically it. There's not really anything else to say about that. It's better than episode 1, because at least, it had somewhat of a story in there rather than just a bunch of random scenes. But at the end of the day, the the vague elements of a story it did have were basically either done before, or if not, it was just pretty kind of lifeless and limp. So, yeah. But anyway, that was my thoughts after just watching the episode, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.